They said the hangar wasn't built for her. The echo of metal boots, the scent of jet fuel, the endless clang of wrenches against steel. It was a man's world, they said, a place where hands were supposed to be calloused, voices loud, and tempers louder. She entered quietly, notebook in hand, eyes sharp enough to catch what others missed. Every day, she watched how assumptions built invisible walls. The moment she walked in, she could feel the silence that trailed behind her like a shadow. People doubted her before she even spoke. They doubted her when she did. But doubt never stopped her hands from moving or her mind from running faster than any engine on the floor. Breaking stereotypes in technical fields doesn't start with confrontation. It starts with competence. She learned early that in rooms where no one expects you to succeed, your work has to speak before you do. She spoke through schematics, calculations, and designs that pushed efficiency beyond what even the senior engineers thought possible. While others debated whether she belonged, she spent nights recalculating air compression ratios, shaving milliseconds off ignition timing, optimizing torque response curves. The language of performance was one that couldn't be argued with. The stereotype wasn't just about gender, it was about presence. Technical fields have long favored confidence over curiosity, volume over value. She refused to play that game. When others shouted their way through meetings, she listened, analyzed, and waited for the right question to dismantle a flawed assumption. That was her edge. In a world built on equations, she became the variable they hadn't accounted for. Every stereotype she broke left a crack in the foundation of bias. The first came when her design ran cleaner under high pressure. The next, when her adjustments fixed a recurring vibration issue the team had written off as just how it is. By the time her work reached the SEAL unit for testing, there was no denying the precision. What they didn't know was that every improvement carried the weight of 1,000 silent rejections. She didn't fight for recognition. She fought for accuracy. The recognition followed because excellence has a way of leaving evidence. Breaking stereotypes isn't a single victory. It's a process of surviving disbelief again and again until your work becomes undeniable. It means getting comfortable with the idea that your success might make others uncomfortable. It means being the first to arrive and the last to leave, not for validation, but for the satisfaction of knowing your designs are bulletproof. It means learning to take feedback without flinching and criticism without surrendering. There's a quiet power in persistence. Each time they questioned her, she answered with results. She learned to measure progress not by approval, but by precision. The first prototype that fired flawlessly wasn't just a mechanical success. It was a statement. Every component, every line of code, every calibrated detail carried a message. Skill has no gender. But stereotypes don't vanish easily. They shift, adapt, disguise themselves as concerns or advice. She learned to hear the subtext in every compliment that ended with "for someone like you." She smiled through it, filed it away, and went back to work. Because real change doesn't come from arguing about bias. It comes from outperforming it. In breaking those barriers, she also redefined what leadership looked like. The junior engineers who watched her saw something they hadn't before. That mastery didn't have to shout. She led through precision, not power plays. She taught through example, not instruction. And slowly, the hangar began to change. Conversations shifted. People started asking questions instead of making assumptions. Respect, once withheld, began to circulate like air, quietly, naturally, as part of the environment. Breaking stereotypes is not about proving everyone wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about showing up every day in spaces that weren't designed with you in mind and leaving your mark anyway. It's about building systems that perform beyond expectation and refusing to let outdated perceptions define capability. She didn't want to be the exception. She wanted to be the start of a new normal. The engine she built wasn't just a machine. It was proof that progress is made when skill outpaces assumption. Every bolt she tightened, every reading she checked, every test she ran was part of a larger message to every young woman watching from the sidelines. The stereotype had been loud for too long. Her work made it silent. Respect isn't given in places like that. It's earned in the heat of pressure and the precision of performance. On the hangar floor, titles mean less than timing, and talk means nothing if the engine doesn't run. She knew it from the start. She walked into that space where every pair of eyes judged before they understood, where introductions came with hesitation and trust had to be built bolt by bolt. The air was thick with competition, with pride sharpened by years of experience, and she was the outsider carrying a notebook instead of swagger. They didn't see an engineer, they saw a question mark. But questions have a way of demanding answers, and she had one that couldn't be ignored: results. She didn't ask for trust, and she didn't expect it. She earned it with every test she passed, every flaw she caught, every late night spent troubleshooting what others overlooked. In technical work, there's no room for opinions, only data, performance, and outcomes. And so she let her data do the talking. The first time her calculations outperformed a senior engineer's model, the silence in the room said more than any applause could. Numbers don't lie, and neither did her precision. Respect began there, quietly, growing from the undeniable evidence of her ability. She learned that real credibility isn't about authority, it's about consistency. Anyone can get lucky once. Real respect comes when your accuracy becomes predictable, when others start double-checking their work because they know yours won't need it. She built that reputation piece by piece. Every successful simulation, every perfect alignment, every problem solved under deadline became a record of reliability. The higher the stakes, the more her work spoke. Soon, even those who doubted her found themselves waiting for her input before finalizing decisions. Earning respect through results means working with discipline when recognition is nowhere in sight. It means doing the unglamorous tasks, the calibration, the debugging, the documentation, with the same care as the high-profile ones. She approached every detail with the same mindset. Excellence has no small parts. Every gear, every wire, every measurement had to align perfectly. Over time, her precision became a standard others measured themselves against. What began as skepticism turned into silent dependence. But respect built on results also demands endurance. There were days when the engine failed test after test, when she questioned her own equations, when exhaustion blurred the lines between persistence and obsession. The team watched. Some waited for her to fold, to prove their early doubts right. Instead, she recalculated, retooled, and tried again. Her calm under failure became as respected as her success. The moment she stopped explaining and simply demonstrated, everything shifted. She wasn't trying to prove she belonged anymore. She was proving what was possible. There's a specific kind of respect that comes from solving a problem others have given up on. When the SEAL unit reported a fault under extreme conditions, she volunteered to stay until it was fixed. She didn't need to, but she understood something fundamental. Credibility grows in the moments when others step back. 2 sleepless nights later, when the revised system passed with 0 deviation, the captain didn't just nod in approval. He paused. It wasn't just about the fix. It was about the steadiness she brought to chaos. In that pause lived the shift from doubt to respect. In technical environments, respect is transactional until it becomes transformational. At first, they respected her because she delivered. Over time, they respected her because they realized she elevated everyone around her. When she reviewed a design, her feedback made others sharper. When she led a test, her standards pushed the whole team higher. She didn't just earn respect, she reshaped its meaning. It was no longer about who had the loudest opinion, but who had the most dependable outcome. Earning respect through results also meant redefining leadership without hierarchy. She learned to guide through precision, not position. Her influence didn't come from authority, it came from accuracy. Others started seeking her insight not because they had to, but because they trusted the outcome. Respect, once forced, became natural. The hangar evolved into a place where performance outshined prejudice. She didn't need to demand acknowledgement. Her results made it automatic. What set her apart wasn't just intelligence. It was the refusal to let doubt dictate quality. Every success was built on quiet, relentless focus. She never corrected those who underestimated her. She outperformed them instead. In a world obsessed with image, she made substance impossible to ignore. Her work became her identity, and her record became her defense. Over time, even the most skeptical voices started echoing her methods, using her standards as reference points. That's how respect works in real engineering. It's earned through proof, repetition, and an unwavering commitment to precision. Earning respect through results is not about winning arguments or silencing critics. It's about showing that reliability speaks louder than rhetoric. In every test, every adjustment, every successful run, she left behind a trace of mastery that no assumption could erase. The more her work proved itself, the less they questioned her presence. What began as resistance turned into recognition, and what started as doubt transformed into dependence. Pressure has a way of revealing truth. In a workshop filled with heat, noise, and deadlines, talk fades fast, and only precision survives. She understood that from the first day she touched an engine schematic. Every component had to align perfectly. Every decimal in her calculations had to land exactly where it belonged. In mechanical systems, there's no room for almost right. There's only right or failure. That clarity appealed to her. It didn't care who you were or what anyone thought of you. Under pressure, math doesn't bend for bias. It's fair, even when people aren't. She lived for that kind of fairness. Precision became her armor, her language, her way to move through a field that doubted her. When others hesitated, she focused. When things broke, she recalibrated. Pressure didn't scare her, it sharpened her. The more intense the environment, the more exact her movements became. She had learned to slow down her breathing when everything else around her sped up. It wasn't calm born of comfort. It was control earned through repetition. In moments when others panicked, she was steady, her thoughts cutting through noise like a laser through fog. Every engineer learns that precision isn't just about measurement, it's about mindset. Anyone can tighten a bolt or run a test. Precision means knowing why every bolt matters and what every reading means when systems start to fail. Under pressure, assumptions collapse. She treated every problem like a living thing, dissecting its rhythm, finding where it faltered. When the test engine screamed through their trial runs, she didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed locked on the readings, her hand on the dial, every adjustment small but deliberate. Each move mattered, because in this world, 1 millimeter too far or 1 second too slow could decide everything. The power of precision under pressure comes from discipline built long before the test begins. She didn't trust luck. She trusted preparation, the endless repetition, the careful documentation, the checking and rechecking of systems until failure became predictable. She knew that excellence isn't born in the moment. It's trained through thousands of quiet hours no one sees. So when pressure arrived, she wasn't reacting. She was executing a plan she'd already lived through 100 times in her mind. There's a rhythm to high-stakes work. You can hear it in the hum of machines, in the measured footsteps of technicians moving around the floor, in the low murmur of checklists being read aloud. She moved within that rhythm naturally, attuned to every subtle shift. When something went off, an unfamiliar vibration, a flicker in a gauge, she caught it before the alarm did. That's what precision under pressure looks like. The ability to stay so tuned into your craft that chaos becomes a signal instead of a threat. She faced moments that would have broken others. One night, the prototype failed 3 times in a row. The air was thick with frustration, the team snapping at each other, confidence crumbling. She stepped back from the noise, stared at the readings, and saw it. The tiniest fluctuation in fuel flow, buried in data no one had noticed. She recalibrated the feed, adjusted the valve timing, and ran the test again. The engine roared to life, smooth, stable, flawless. That moment wasn't luck. It was precision born from relentless attention and unshakable focus under fire. Under pressure, people reveal what they rely on most. Some rely on instinct, some on experience, some on authority. She relied on numbers. They didn't waver. They didn't betray. The clean lines of a graph, the quiet logic of an equation, those were her allies. Precision gave her control when everything else felt unstable. It wasn't emotionless, It was purpose-driven. She cared too much to guess. She needed to know. That hunger to know the exact cause, the exact fix, the exact limit of what could be done is what separated her from the rest. But precision isn't just technical, it's emotional discipline. When teammates lost focus under pressure, she didn't match their panic. She absorbed it and redirected it. Her tone stayed even, her movements deliberate. She understood that control spreads. One calm person can stabilize a room faster than any command. Her precision wasn't just in her hands. It was in her leadership, her timing, her restraint. The more chaotic the environment became, the more grounded she appeared. It wasn't performance. It was survival instinct honed into skill. Pressure never stopped coming. It came from the ticking clock, from the watching eyes of higher ranks, from the unspoken weight of proving herself every single day. But she treated it as energy instead of resistance. Each test, each failure, each urgent fix was a chance to refine her process, to make the next move more exact. She didn't chase perfection, she built toward it, one precise correction at a time. That's how she thrived in the kind of work where hesitation costs time and time costs trust. In the end, precision under pressure wasn't about ego or reputation. It was about integrity. Machines don't care about excuses, and neither did she. They respond only to accuracy, to alignment, to those who can stay exact when everything around them is about to fall apart. Doubt followed her like static in the air. It was there in the side glances when she walked into the hangar, in the careful tone people used when explaining things she already knew, in the unspoken question behind every nod. Doubt can drain you or drive you. She decided it would drive her. Every time someone second-guessed her calculations, she sharpened them. Every time someone said she wasn't ready, she prepared harder. Doubt wasn't her weakness. It became the weight she trained under until it turned into strength. There's a moment in every career where doubt either breaks you or builds you. For her, that moment came early. The first time her design was dismissed in a meeting, she didn't argue. She stayed quiet, waited until the test results came in, and let the data speak. When her numbers outperformed the standard, she didn't gloat. She simply highlighted the findings and moved on. She learned that silence, when paired with evidence, carries more power than outrage ever could. That moment rewired her. From then on, every no was just another form of motivation disguised as resistance. Turning doubt into drive requires a kind of focus that doesn't come from confidence. It comes from necessity. She didn't have the privilege of being careless or the luxury of being average. Every step had to be precise because one mistake would be remembered longer than 10 successes. That pressure didn't make her fragile, it made her methodical. She began treating skepticism like fuel, something to be burned slowly for energy. Each obstacle became a target, and each dismissal became a reason to push further. She stopped trying to prove herself to people and started proving her ideas to reality. That shift changed everything. Instead of fighting for approval, she fought for performance. She learned that the only true equalizer in technical work is results. You can't argue with an engine that runs cleaner or a system that outperforms its limit. By anchoring her focus on outcomes, she turned doubt into a metric she could measure. The more they doubted, the harder she worked until the equation balanced in her favor. Doubt has a strange way of forcing clarity. It strips away comfort, leaving only the essential. When others coasted on reputation, she built her own credibility from zero. It wasn't about pride. It was about survival in a space where belief was a luxury. Every small win mattered because each one chipped away at the wall of assumption standing in front of her. The first successful test, the first commendation, the first time someone asked for her review instead of offering unsolicited advice. All of it added up. The wall didn't fall at once. It eroded piece by piece. She noticed something else. The louder the doubt, the greater the opportunity hidden behind it. When people told her a design wouldn't hold, she took it as a challenge to find the flaw and fix it. When they questioned her endurance, she stayed longer than anyone else. Doubt gave her direction. It told her exactly where to focus, exactly what to prove next. Each time they tried to limit her, they accidentally mapped out the boundaries she would surpass. But turning doubt into drive isn't just about external voices. It's about managing the internal ones too. There were nights when even she questioned her place, when fatigue blurred the lines between determination and obsession. The doubt inside her was quieter but sharper, asking if the effort was worth it, if she'd ever be seen as more than an exception. She didn't fight that voice, she worked through it. She used the rhythm of repetition, the constant testing, refining, recalculating, to keep herself steady. Progress, even small, kept her grounded when belief wavered. What she discovered through that process was that drive built from doubt has a different kind of strength. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't need applause to sustain itself. It's a steady burn, a controlled force that doesn't fade when recognition doesn't come. That's why she could outlast others who started with louder ambition. They ran on confidence. She ran on resolve. Doubt had taught her endurance. Each success carried the memory of every earlier dismissal. When her design was finally praised by those who once questioned her, she didn't feel vindicated. She felt ready for the next test. That's what happens when doubt becomes drive. Winning doesn't end the hunger. It feeds it. It turns effort into habit, challenge into routine. She didn't need to prove them wrong anymore. She just needed to keep improving. In the end, the doubt that once surrounded her became proof of progress. It meant she was working in spaces that hadn't seen someone like her before. It meant she was pushing limits others had accepted as fixed. Every engineer faces resistance, but not everyone transforms it into momentum. She did. And that's why when pressure rose, when failure loomed, when the team hesitated, she was the one still moving forward, steady, focused, powered by every doubt that once tried to stop her. Leadership doesn't start when you're given authority. It starts the moment you earn trust. She wasn't anyone's captain or commander, but when problems hit, people turned to her anyway. Not because she spoke the loudest, but because she listened differently. While others rushed to fix symptoms, she looked for causes. While others blamed, she analyzed. The hangar didn't need another voice shouting orders. It needed someone who could see through the noise and make sense of the chaos. That became her role, not by title, but by instinct. She learned early that real leadership isn't about control, it's about clarity. In technical work, confusion spreads faster than failure. When a system malfunctions, when data contradicts itself, the worst thing a leader can do is panic. She became the comm center everyone else anchored to. Her leadership came through composure, through precision, through the ability to strip a problem down to its simplest form and rebuild it piece by piece. People respected her not because she was infallible, but because she refused to guess. Every decision she made was grounded in logic and evidence. There were moments when official leaders froze under pressure. The SEAL captain himself, a man trained for extremes, hesitated at a signature mark on the engine she had designed. He didn't know what it meant. She did. She stepped forward, explained it, and brought the test back on track. That was the moment the hierarchy bent. Rank mattered less than understanding. In that instant, authority shifted quietly to competence. She didn't flaunt it. She didn't make a point of proving anything. She just did her job with the kind of focus that steadies everyone else. Leadership that listens starts with humility. She knew she didn't have all the answers, so she asked the right questions. When technicians brought up concerns, she didn't dismiss them. She drew them in, made them part of the process. She turned every opinion into data, every disagreement into analysis. That habit created a culture around her where ideas flowed instead of clashing. People began to speak up more, not out of fear, but out of shared responsibility. Her influence spread quietly, built on respect for accuracy rather than authority. Listening also means hearing what isn't said. She noticed the fatigue in voices during long shifts, the hesitation before a team member admitted a mistake, the subtle frustration that builds when people feel ignored. She addressed those things not with speeches, but with presence. A short question at the right moment, a shared silence during a test gone wrong, a small acknowledgement after success. Those were her tools. Leadership wasn't a performance for her. It was observation turned into action. In environments like the hangar, leadership can easily turn into ego. People cling to their titles, defend their methods, guard their credit. She moved differently. When things went right, she credited the team. When things failed, she took the responsibility. That balance earned her a loyalty no rank could command. Others began to follow her example. Less blame, more ownership. Her consistency reshaped how the team operated. Mistakes became lessons instead of scars. Solutions became collective victories. The deeper her leadership grew, the less she relied on authority. She didn't need to remind anyone of her expertise. They already knew. When she entered a room, conversations paused not because of fear, but because people trusted that she'd bring clarity. That's the kind of influence that doesn't need volume. It's earned through precision, empathy, and repetition. She built credibility layer by layer, through actions so consistent they became expected. The moment she spoke, even briefly, people listened because they knew she didn't waste words. Listening doesn't mean weakness. It takes strength to hold space for others' ideas without losing your own direction. There were times when her patience was tested, when louder voices tried to override her reasoning. She didn't fight for dominance. She waited, asked one question that exposed the flaw, and let logic settle the debate. That restraint became her signature. She proved that leadership rooted in listening isn't passive, it's strategic. By understanding everyone's perspective, she always had a clearer view of the problem. Leadership that listens also requires empathy under pressure. When deadlines loomed and tempers ran high, she was the one who reminded the team why they were there, to build something that mattered, something that worked flawlessly when lives depended on it. She didn't motivate through speeches or slogans. She led through conviction, through the visible care she put into her work. When people saw how much it mattered to her, they matched her effort. That's how commitment spreads, not through demand, but through example. As the team evolved under her influence, even the hierarchy began to adjust. Senior officers consulted her before approving tests. New engineers sought her feedback before presenting designs. She had become the quiet authority, the kind of leader whose presence alone steadied a room. She never asked for that role, but it grew naturally from her consistency. Every decision she made carried the weight of listening, understanding, and precision. In a field where mistakes cost more than pride, that kind of leadership mattered more than any title ever could. Strength has always been misunderstood. For a long time, people thought it meant muscle, command, or the ability to outshout a room. But she showed another version of it. Quiet, deliberate, and unshakable. She didn't need to raise her voice or throw her weight around. Her strength came from discipline, from the ability to stand firm when things fell apart, from staying steady when every system around her was on the edge of failure. In the modern workforce, strength isn't about dominance anymore. It's about endurance, empathy, and precision under pressure. She embodied that without even trying. Every day in the hangar tested what kind of strength mattered most. There were moments when equipment failed, when timelines collapsed, when people lost confidence. She didn't react with anger or panic. She focused on solutions. Strength, for her, meant composure, the kind that allows logic to win over emotion. When others raised their voices, she lowered hers. When tension built, she grounded the room. She had learned that being unshaken isn't the same as being unfeeling. It means caring enough to stay present when things go wrong instead of retreating or blaming. Redefining strength in a space built on tradition meant challenging long-standing assumptions. The hangar culture prized toughness, long hours, and physical grit. But she brought another form of resilience, the intellectual kind that doesn't crumble under scrutiny. She stayed sharp through exhaustion, kept her mind clear when others blurred from fatigue. She didn't compete by mimicking the old idea of toughness. She introduced a new one built on mental endurance and adaptability. Every time she solved a problem without breaking stride, she redefined what strong looked like. Modern strength is measured by how well you adapt when the unexpected hits. The day a key system malfunctioned mid-test, everyone froze. She didn't. She ran diagnostics, issued quick instructions, and stabilized the situation before anyone else processed what had happened. Later, someone asked how she stayed so calm. She said it wasn't calm, it was focus. That's the difference. Real strength isn't about pretending pressure doesn't exist. It's about managing it so it doesn't control you. She had trained herself to channel stress into action, not reaction. She also understood that strength doesn't mean isolation. The old version of leadership demanded silence about struggle, as if asking for help showed weakness. She rejected that completely. When she hit a wall, she sought collaboration. When she didn't know something, she admitted it. That honesty built trust faster than perfection ever could. People followed her not because she was invincible, but because she was real. Her version of strength made space for vulnerability, and in that space, innovation grew. The team felt freer to take risks, to admit mistakes, to learn faster. Strength became collective instead of competitive. There's a quiet intensity in people who carry responsibility without complaint. She had that. Long hours, high stakes, tight deadlines. She faced them without dramatics. It wasn't that she didn't feel the strain. It was that she'd learned how to carry it without spilling it onto others. That control didn't come naturally. It was earned through repetition, through learning where her limits were and stretching them carefully. Her endurance came from discipline, not denial. She built strength like an engineer builds a machine, methodically, piece by piece, with precision and maintenance. Redefining strength also meant rethinking how success looked. It wasn't about who could stay the latest or shout the loudest. It was about who could produce the cleanest solution, the most reliable design, the most efficient system. Strength was found in accuracy, in the willingness to refine instead of rush. She didn't equate exhaustion with effort. She valued clarity over chaos, results over noise. That mindset started to influence others. Soon, the hangar became quieter, not from fatigue, but from focus. The team learned that strength could be stillness, that real control didn't have to look aggressive. What made her stand out was how she handled resistance. Every time someone underestimated her, she met it with competence. Every time she faced doubt, she countered it with delivery. Strength for her wasn't about proving superiority. It was about consistency. She didn't need validation because her work made its own argument. She turned underestimation into momentum. Each time they told her something couldn't be done, she added it to her list of things to finish. That quiet defiance, the refusal to be limited by perception, was its own form of power. She represented a shift happening across modern industries, the move from power defined by control to power defined by contribution. The most respected professionals now aren't the ones who command, they're the ones who elevate. She did that instinctively. Her presence raised the standard without forcing it. She didn't need to demand excellence because she embodied it. That's what redefining strength looks like now. The ability to inspire through consistency, to lead through clarity, to influence without intimidation. In every challenge, she demonstrated that strength doesn't have to be loud to be felt. It can exist in the steady hands tightening a bolt, in the patient voice explaining a fix, in the persistence that outlasts exhaustion. She proved that resilience isn't resistance, it's flexibility. It's knowing when to hold firm and when to adjust. In a world that keeps changing, her kind of strength isn't just admirable, it's necessary. It's the strength that builds trust, that sustains teams, that turns chaos into structure and doubt into drive.